But to me, it's I can go even further, which is if Batman is doing what he does out of, in a lot of ways, kind of vengeance and mourning his parents' deaths, Nightwing does what he does to celebrate his parents' lives.
Yeah.
So I've been wanting to talk about my second favorite DC comic hero, Dick Grayson, for a while on the channel. And who better to do it than someone currently writing his thesis on the character? Josh, welcome back to the channel.
It's good to be back, Wes. Good to be back.
So I personally find Nightwing Dick Grayson is probably the most relatable hero in all of comics. He's kind of a loner, not really looking for a fight, but he's always there for his city and his friends. He's completely rational and dependable. Josh, what do you think makes Dick Grayson a great superhero?
I mean, everything you said. He's rational. He's dependable. He's a little bit of a loner. He's got he's got that lone wolf style. But what I think makes Dick Grayson a great hero, I kind of have to explain a little bit about what I've been studying with heroes first, which kind of stems to just fictional heroes in general. A lot of our fictional heroes, and this breaks outside of comic books, this stems into everything. Star Wars is a great example with Luke Skywalker. Our fictional heroes are often written to personify these particular heroic traits and characteristics that just appeal to us and appeal to our human nature. They're designed to inspire us. They're designed to educate us. They're just designed for us to admire them. They are the best of the best. They are what we strive to be on our very best day. For Dick Grayson, he just possesses a lot of... I'm actually reading a book right now on this. He possesses a lot of... they're called common notions of heroism. They're just different characteristics and notions that are very common amongst very popular, relatable heroes. Attractiveness, selflessness, strength, toughness. The hero's highly competent. They have great self-control, highly intelligent. Dick Grayson is all of these things. He's always been attractive. He's always been selfless. He's making sacrifices, jumping in front of bullets. Can't count how many times Dick Grayson has been shot, usually taking a bullet for someone else. He's strong. He's tough. Toughness is a big one. He's always in control of himself, his body, the situation at hand. And this self-control is going to be one of the big things I go back to when we talk about Ric Grayson, because he doesn't have it while he's Ric Grayson, and that's a big problem. He also has his moral code, Batman's code of justice that he adheres to. He doesn't kill. He will choose to apprehend the villain. He doesn't stray off the path of good. He sticks to his guns. He's got a lot of these common notions of heroes that are just bled into the core of his character. It's who he is. And that's why he's so relatable to us, because he possesses all of these qualities. He's tough, he's strong, he's smart, he's always in control of himself, he's charismatic, he's a great leader. He's just got all of these common notions of heroes, and it just works really well for him as a character, and it just makes him so relatable to all of us.
So going into the history of Dick Grayson, did these things start when he became Nightwing, or were those already prevalent when he was, in his journey as Robin as well?
The funny thing about Grayson is his character was in like a 30-year stasis. He was introduced in the 1940, which predates just about every DC superhero except for Batman and Superman. I mean, he predates Alfred and Wonder Woman. He appeared before both of them. He didn't really start developing these notions until the late 60s, early 70s, but he blew up as a character when Marv Wolfman got his hands on him in the 80s with the new Teen Titans. And then we had so many classic runs with that. That Teen Titans team was classic. It was DC's best-selling book through the 80s. That led into things like the Judas Contract, where he became Nightwing, and that's where he really blew up as a hero. Throughout the 40s through the 70s, he was pretty much just a plot device for Batman. He allowed Batman to lighten up and access like humanity instead of just being this dark, nasty figure of the night. Robin was like that light in his darkness, but that's all he was good for. He wasn't really fleshed out as a character.
Yeah, that's one of another thing that I really like about the way he's portrayed right now. He's like a healthy Batman to me. He's
Yes.
what Batman would be if he wasn't so obsessed, with crime and everything, and the way that it's impacted his life. If he was able to relate with it and deal with these tragedies healthily, but still help people, he would be Nightwing.
Yes, in my thesis, I actually argue that Dick Grayson is the successful story of Bruce Wayne. Batman spends a lot of time in this endless loop of self-destructive behavior. He's stuck in the night his parents were killed. He'll never get out of it. Dick Grayson's not. He overcame his tragedy and he uses it as a strength rather than as his reasoning to fighting crime. I'll get flack for it, but he's superior to Batman. He is the right version of Batman. Like you said, he's the healthy version. He's the right version. And I've done some studies into like childhood trauma because of working with these characters, and it's very interesting to compare the paths of Grayson and Bruce, because Grayson had Bruce and he had Alfred. He had people who loved him, and Bruce didn't. Bruce, kind of shut himself off. He went to train for 10 years or whatever and just came back. By then it's already stuck in this cycle of self-destruction.
Well, interesting. We hadn't really talked about your thesis before, so I find it interesting. We kind of have the same outlook on the character and what he really represents.
Yep.
At least in my mind. So we have talked about this before. My favorite Dick Grayson story is actually Nightwing 43. It's just Dick with Roy Harper and Damian Wayne on a random adventure. And what I really like is the characterization of the relationship between the three, specifically how Dick is portrayed as a leader and a mentor to both of them. In your opinion, what makes a great Dick Grayson story? And what are some of your favorites?
Making a great Dick Grayson story is very easy. But it's getting harder with the way that modern comic book writers work. A lot of modern comic book writers don't want to put the work in. They just kind of expect to put the character on the page and everybody's going to like it. But you actually do have to put work into crafting a story. It's a little more difficult, I think, to craft a Batman story or a Superman story than it is to craft a story for Dick Grayson. In my opinion, you only need one thing to craft a great Dick Grayson story, and it's another one of these common notions of heroism that I talked about, overcoming an obstacle. That's all you need. All you need to write a great Dick Grayson story is to push him to his limits with a challenge or an obstacle, whether it's one villain, a group of villains, something tragic from his past coming back to haunt him, a previous relationship gone sour, whatever. As long as it presents itself as an obstacle to him and he overcomes it in the end, that's a great Dick Grayson story. That's all you need. Yeah, so a couple of my favorite Grayson stories. I know you've talked about Robin Year One before. Classic, just amazing story. Kind of him going through his first run of things with tests and trying to impress Batman, his trials and tribulations. Another one, which I know people aren't very keen on, Nightwing's New 52 run. I thought that Kyle Higgins did a decent job with what he was given with them for the first 30 issues anyway. His part of the Night of the Owls story where he fights a Talon who's actually his great-grandfather, William Cobb. Perfect Nightwing story. Takes place over issues 7 through 9. Awesome. It was an awesome story. Just him fighting someone who's far superior to him, who can regenerate, and he finds a way to beat him using his head. Perfect Dick Grayson story. Nightwing 43, you talked about, but my personal favorite Nightwing story is the Untouchable arc from Nightwing. It was post Rebirth, but it's still from that whole, I think it was 35 through 41. It was written by Sam Humphries with art from Bernard Chang. Perfect Dick Grayson story. It was flawless.
Yeah, I like that one because they actually introduced a new villain
Mm-hmm.
that was compelling. I remember when I first started reading that story, I was like, is this guy the devil? I was like, I think this guy is. Then you find out he's actually the judge, and there's a little bit. It's not quite that he's not that evil, but yeah, that was a great one. I really like that story.
Yeah, and Humphreys, he did it really well. He just said, "Hey, this was, kind of like a small time villain that Batman and Robin dealt with years ago. He was just never talked about." Fantastic way to tie it in, an easy way to do it, so you don't mess with continuity. And the judge just pushes him to his physical and mental breaking points. And there's a scene in issue 40 that it's like burned into my brain. I'll never forget the panels where he just rides a motorcycle through a casino to get to the judge, and he drives the motorcycle into an elevator and presses the button to go to the top floor, because why wouldn't you get off your motorcycle? And he says like, I'm coughing blood, my fists are screaming, my ears are ringing, but I won't stop. I'm not stopping until I get to him and taking him down. And just that logic of I won't stop. That's what Grayson is. He's a machine. He doesn't give up. He doesn't break. His fists could be bleeding, coughing up blood. His ears are ringing. He's trashed physically, stabbed, beaten up. Doesn't matter. He's on his feet and he's going to fight until the last breath. He won't give up. He won't give in. He won't stop. And Sam Humphries just crafted, in my opinion, what was a masterpiece from issue to issue with that. It was just perfect. It's the ultimate Dick Grayson story.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. So it's interesting you mentioned Kyle Higgins because, the character or the writer that I most associate with Dick Grayson Nightwing is actually Chuck Dixon.
Yeah, of course.
But the modern writer that when you listen to him speak about Dick Grayson that really seems to have a real passion for the characters is Kyle Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
And he created, it's the New Order?
Yeah, yep, the Elseworld story. Mm-hmm.
What did you think about that one? Because that's a different kind of take on Dick Grayson.
I loved it. I am a big fan for Dick Grayson's romance with Starfire. I have no idea why DC never went all the way with that and just had them become a couple with a family. And they just, even when Rebirth came back, that was one thing that still didn't come back from, the 80s that people loved, was that romance. So I thought it was really great that, they actually had a child together and Starfire, wasn't there. It was a very good post-apocalyptic story, and to me it kind of speaks to it goes back to what we were talking about with how Nightwing or Grayson is the successful version of Bruce Wayne. That's a story where you see that little bit of Bruce Wayne come out in him. He's like a control freak. He channels his inner Bruce Wayne for a lot of that story, but at the end he kind of comes around, and you just had a lot of cool things. Like, I think Lois Lane was a Blue Lantern, which was really cool. I felt that was a great story. I think Kyle Higgins does have a passion for him. And I mean, with the scripts he was given in New 52, the parameters he had to work with, he made the most of it. I read a lot of Nightwing New 52 when I hadn't gone back to reread a lot of the past Nightwing stories. Like, I've gone back to reread a lot of Chuck Dixon's run. I've read a lot of the new Teen Titans when he was still Robin and stuff. So I have a different idea of what to expect for the character now, or what my expectations are anyway. But Kyle Higgins did the best of what he could with what he was given. And I'd like to see him get another crack at the character once all this crap is fixed up with him.
Well, from everything I've heard, he would like that as well. So I do have one last question, for this segment. We just talked about Dick Grayson and romance. Do you think Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon should be a permanent couple and marry eventually in DC Comics?
I would prefer Starfire as a partner for him, but Barbara Gordon is probably the best choice as far as writing goes. I don't know if you read any of DC's Convergence stuff. It was pretty bad. And they did a bunch of these like 2-issue things where they explored all these different worlds and timelines. They actually did one. I can't remember what it's called. It might just be called Nightwing and Oracle. But they did do a two-shot story where it was another Earth where him and Barbara had, I think they were married, but she was still Oracle. And I just thought that that story was great. Like, oh wow, he's in love with her. They're kind of like the high school sweetheart story with those two, with Barbara and Dick. And I just thought that that story was really good. I don't even remember who wrote it. I can't even picture like the cover art, but I did remember reading that, and I was like, wow, this is something. I'm usually a big thing of Grayson and Starfire, but I would love to see him settle down with Barbara Gordon and like them kind of start a family and work off of that.
Well, thank you very much. I want to talk some more about Dick Grayson tomorrow. Are you available?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, let's do it tomorrow, buddy.
Sounds good.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.